I'm with Curiosity China, and we are a digital marketing agency and social CRM company based out of Beijing. So I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you again, Laura, for organizing, and thanks to all of you for taking the time to come out and listen to the speakers. So I hope you'll enjoy this talk. So the focus of my presentation is your WeChat strategy, and primarily how to take your strategy from obsolete to smart. So we're going to be looking at how to leverage consumer data to create a targeted content strategy to identify key influencers and to hopefully drive conversions. So let's get started. So it's no surprise that technology is constantly evolving, from clunky rotary phones to smartphones, from single combustion engines to innovative electric cars. And of course, social media is no exception to this trend. And if anything, as we all know in this room, it's moving much, much faster. So we've witnessed lately a transition from one-to-many, we'll call it mass messaging platforms like Facebook, Weibo, Twitter, towards one-to-one direct mobile messaging applications like WhatsApp, WeChat, and Line. So while the platforms are changing, and certainly user habits are changing, especially in China where we're really dealing with mobile natives, with digital natives, it seems that somehow some brands are a bit slow to adapt their strategy. So it's about time that the strategy evolved to adapt to these mobile messaging platforms. And it's about taking your strategy from a one-to-many approach to one-to-one. So what I see still today, and unfortunately a lot of brands that are still applying the same approach to WeChat that they would apply to their Weibo, which is of course not going to be as effective. So the idea is to really leverage Weibo or WeChat for what it's good at, which is creating a direct line of communication with your consumers in China. So what does a well-rounded and smart social CRM strategy look like on WeChat? So this is kind of an overview here. So starting with acquisition. So this acquisition is happening both online and offline. So this is your famous QR code display. Again, as Pete mentioned, there are still a lot of brands that are not taking full advantage of all of the touch points where you can display a QR code and start your recruitment. So this acquisition is going to help not only to recruit and to grow your member database, it's also going to help you to measure the performance of each of these recruitment channels, and it's going to help you to start segmenting your user database. So in terms of user segmentation, so again, the idea here is going to be to create target groups that we can leverage down the road to mount a targeted content strategy. Moving forward, we'll be looking to identify the most active users or owned influencers on the account, reward them, and transform them into brand ambassadors, with the goal, of course, mounting targeted content strategy and driving them to a point of sales, whether that be online or offline. And at the end, of course, measuring the ROI, which is going to help us to do what, see what's working, what's not working, and improve our strategy moving forward. So unfortunately today we're not going to be able to focus on each and every one of those points. So I've boiled it down to what I feel are 3 key tactics that will help you to update your strategy in the event that you've not already done so. So starting with smart segmentation. So we'll take a look at how that works. We'll take a look at influencer identification and outreach. And from there, talk a bit about targeted content strategy and how that's going to help you to drive conversions. So smart segmentation. And this is where it all starts. So this is crucial. This is where we're going to lay the groundwork, where we're going to create the groups that we're going to leverage down the road for this targeted content strategy. So what does that look like? So the idea, again, we're looking to leverage data. We're looking to leverage this data to build your customer segmentation. So here you see a couple of, a few different categories, or tags, as I'll call them. So in the top line, we see more, I would say, demographic-based categories. So this is, of course, information that you're already going to be getting with your WeChat MP or the WeChat backend. So gender, location, language, included devices here. This is actually an important, something more important to keep in mind because devices are going to give us an idea of a consumer's level of purchasing power. So dropping down one more line, digging in a bit deeper, and in order to get into this kind of segmentation, you'll have to plug into a social CRM tool. So that's what we're doing. So if you're interested in hearing more about that, I'm happy to connect with you during the break. So by connecting to a social CRM tool, what additional data can we get? So here we're going to be able to start to look at the user's activity levels, their level of influence, look at their content interest. How are we establishing content interest? So we're going to be looking at the page views. We're looking at menu clicks. If you have an auto reply set up, we're going to be looking at the keywords that they're habitually sending to the account. All of this, again, is going to serve to create detailed user profiles. It's going to allow us to communicate more efficiently down the road. Dropping down to the third line. So here we're talking about recruitment. So I already mentioned this. Right off the bat, if you're displaying unique QR codes at each customer touch point, you can start to segment your users by, for example, the store they were recruited in. This is very helpful because you can imagine that down the road you can then reach out to these consumers and you can send them targeted information about a special event or special offer in their local boutique. Traveling. So this is, of course, hugely important. And I'm sure you're wondering, well, how do we establish this? How do we know which of your members are travelers? So this can happen in a few different ways. So one, as many of you probably know, WeChat is equipped with location-based services. So how do we leverage that at Curiosity China? We set up a boutique locator function and we integrate it into the brand submenu. And basically, the way it works is when one of your users travels from Beijing to Paris and they're looking for the nearest boutique, all they need to do is share their location. They receive an automatic message that's going to direct them to the nearest boutique. Once that happens, we can then tag them as travelers. Another option is via QR codes. Remember, we talked about displaying QR codes in boutiques, not just in China. This is so important. I can't stress this enough. Your QR codes need to be in all of your boutiques, particularly here in Europe. Once again, when Chinese tourists travel here, if they check in and scan the QR code at your Paris boutique, same thing. We already know they're a traveler. We can tag them and follow up with them down the road. And of course, all else fails, we can reach out and ask them. So in order to dig a bit deeper, and this is something that we're doing with a lot of our clients right now, we're looking to get deeper data through social CRM. So this is a case study from the brand Shibas. So with Shibas, we work to create a WeChat native CRM with the goal to collect more data and to drive sales. So how did it work? So basically, we sent out one WeChat push, just one. We had 10,000 members sign up. There was a coupon attached to encourage them, of course, to follow through with the process, and 80% of them redeemed the coupon. Beyond that, the brand was able to collect more data. So in terms of data, we were looking to get full name, phone number, email, so very useful information down the road. But this is, of course, an opportunity to ask anything you'd like. So it could have been, how often do you travel? Where do you travel? What are your product interests? So again, all of these details that are going to help us to really fill out a user profile. So from here, we're going to talk about influencer outreach. So we're talking about social CRM. This is, of course, a key component. And as Pete mentioned, and we all know, paid influencers in China are charging a few thousand euros per post. So if we're able to identify owned influencers on your account and leverage them, it's invaluable. So when we talk about social CRM, what's the idea behind that? And for us, the idea has really boiled down to this line. and that's rewarding love before money. We all get it, high spenders are great, but in China, again, where word of mouth is still so important and has such an impact on purchasing decision, it is so helpful to be able to identify who these active users are on your account, the influential users, to engage with them in a meaningful way, reward them, and hopefully transform them into brand ambassadors. So this is an example for a recent campaign that we ran for Stuart Weitzman, so an American premium shoe brand. So the campaign, we developed in H5, and it was to create buzz around the launch of their latest collection, to introduce these 3 beautiful new spokesmodels. But behind the scenes, what we were really trying to do with this campaign was to help our client to identify these owned influencers. So when the campaign closed, we had been able to identify the top 100 active users city per city, identify influencers, and this is based on sharing and recruitment trends, and measure the quality of user engagement. So for example, we were able to see that in Shanghai, one user that participated in the campaign, and this was, again, not a paid influencer, just a fan of the brand, participated in the campaign, shared it on her moments, and via her sharing, brought 50 new members to the account. Might not seem like a big amount, but it adds up very quickly. And again, this kind of information is so valuable in the hands of a brand that's willing to use it. So how do we use this information? So again, this is going to help us to create a targeted content strategy. So we've already laid the groundwork. We have segmented our user database, identified our influencers. So now we're ready to take it to the next step and mount a targeted content strategy. So why social CRM? So again, the idea behind this is really that we're trying to help our brands to communicate intelligently and effectively. How does this work? So in a first stage, and as we saw in previous slides, it all starts with intelligent segmentation. In the second stage, we're going to create user groups. And in the third stage, of course, send the targeted content. So these are just 3 kind of generic examples, but so that you can start to see how your brand or your clients could take advantage of a strategy like this. So let's say you have a store in Beijing, you're launching a capsule collection that is unique to that store. Create a group. Send a targeted message to all your Beijing-based users and invite them to come into the store, view the collection, and hopefully make a purchase. Travelers. So again, this is huge here. I don't have to tell you how important it is to reach out to Chinese outbound tourists. We already know that, but how are we going to bring them into the store? So we talked about how we're segmenting them. So again, imagine that you create a group of all of your identified tourists or travelers, and you send them an invitation or content inviting them to come into your Paris boutique for an exclusive experience. Influencers. So remember the lady I mentioned earlier in Shanghai that recruited 50 new followers via her sharing. Typically, this is the type of person that we want brands to target. So imagine if it's on a monthly basis, quarterly basis, whatever you're comfortable with, imagine creating a group and sending a targeted communication to these individuals and inviting them to come into your boutique. It can be for a private viewing, to meet, I don't know, designer, whatever you think that you can offer to them. But again, by creating a thoughtful and targeted content strategy, this is how we're going to transform these individuals into influencers. So this is a case study from the Rosewood, Beijing. I don't know if you're familiar with this hotel. It's a beautiful hotel, part of the Creon Group. And we worked with them to do exactly that, to create a targeted communication strategy. So this one's pretty simple. And to accomplish it, we created 2 groups. Group 1, everyone in Beijing. Group 2, everybody else. So why? we figured that the users in Beijing would be more susceptible to communication about the hotel's food and beverage outlets, whereas those outside of Beijing would certainly be interested to receive, in addition to that food and beverage content, to receive information about the room rates and packages. And what do you know? We were right. We found that from pushing this targeted communication, that the average opening rate jumped from an average of 10 to 20% up to 50%. This is a final case study that I'll share from Moleskine. So this was, again, an H5 campaign that we created for the launch of their Star Wars themed collection, which was, of course, a big trending topic earlier this year. So we created an H5 campaign to introduce these limited edition notebooks with details about each product in the collection and a coupon to drive them to the brand's JD store. So how does the targeted content strategy come into play? We targeted the most active users, those that we knew would participate and share. We sent them the special offer, encouraged them to share with their friends, and what do you know? At the campaign's close, we saw a 55% increase in views on the brand's JD shop. So unfortunately, I'm not at liberty to share the sales data with you, but I can tell you that it followed this trend. It was a very successful campaign. So in conclusion, so what have we talked about today? Platforms have changed. User behavior has changed. We're talking to digital natives today, and our strategy needs to adapt. It needs to evolve to keep pace, and we can't consider using the same content strategy that we've used for Weibo and Facebook and just transferring that to WeChat. Again, the beauty of this platform is it allows us to really have a direct line of communication with our customers. It allows us to better understand them, to create detailed profiles, and to send them information that is pertinent, relevant, and engaging. So again, it's time to move from a one-to-many approach to a one-to-one strategy. And a smart, adapted strategy starts with intelligent user segmentation, identifying and rewarding your owned influencers, and developing a targeted strategy to drive conversions.